Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to talk about the two most asked questions I get all the time. How do you start in sports photography and how do you get credentials? And before I begin, just one disclaimer. I'm not a professional photographer in the sense that I don't make a living out of it. So I have a full-time job. Photography is a side thing for the moment being. I don't know what the future will hold, but for the moment being, photography is not how I make my income. That being said, that doesn't mean that I don't know what I'm talking about. Doesn't mean that I know everything, but I just want to be fully transparent with you guys. Okay, so not wanting to crush anyone's dreams, but nobody starts at the top, right? No one's first gig is a Champions League match or the Olympics or the World Cup or the Euro Cup. Nothing like that, right? No one starts at the top, and no one has this happen to them overnight. It takes a long time. Well, some longer than others, obviously, but it takes a long time and it's hard work. So if you think you're gonna get to the top in 2 days, well, you're in for a surprise, but I don't think anyone expects that. But some people have no idea how much work you need to put into this. So if you're just starting out, the first advice I would give to you is to take as many photos as possible, right? The idea here is you want to create a portfolio, right? Forget the gear or your skill. It's all about creating a portfolio and meeting people. Meeting people will actually be the most important thing, because people are the ones that get you access to events. Not your gear, not your skill, it's people. So the more you photograph, the more you attend events, the more you'll be meeting people, and then you get connections, contacts, and so on and so forth, right? It's exponential. If you just stand still, if you just shoot the same team over and over again, it's not going to happen, or it's going to take a longer time, right? So try to get as much as you can when you have time, basically. So what sport should you shoot when you're starting out? Well, my advice is that you shoot one that you love and one that you understand. The reason for this is if you're shooting something you love, you'll have fun doing it. And if you understand the game, the rules, you know when to anticipate the action, you know what type of pictures to expect, you know where to position yourself. You can see what's going to happen before it happens, and that's very important in photography. If you're shooting a game you don't understand, then it's just going to be a waste of time and you're not going to have fun doing it. So pick a sport you like and go from there. Go to Google, go to YouTube, go to Facebook, Twitter, whatever. Search for clubs around your city, around your village, wherever you are. I'm sure there's tons of different amateur clubs. Just poke them on social media. Most clubs, most amateur clubs will love to have a photographer come to their games and do some proper photos, and then just share the photos with them for free. At the start you will want to work for free, because otherwise you're just going to get rejected. And if you're working for free, they'll most likely say yes, right? And there's a little trick you can do, that when you're sharing the photos, share it with your page, but tag the clubs in the post. That way they'll be able to share your post, and this way your post will be seen by your audience and their audience, right? So let's imagine you have 200 likes on your Facebook page, right? And you tag a club that has 4,000. Well, now your reach is going to be 4,200, which is what you want. You want as much exposure as possible. If there's two clubs, then tag both clubs. Then you get the idea. The exposure just goes up and up the more you tag people. One thing you need to get used to, though, as a photographer, is hearing the word no. Regardless if you're just starting out, or when it gets to a time where you've done so many games, you think, oh, I got this, I'm gonna get a yes no matter what. No, you're still gonna hear no's, especially if you're a sports photographer that doesn't work for a sports agency or a newspaper. If you're a freelance, you're gonna be hearing no quite a lot. But again, going back to what I said earlier, it's all about the people. The more connections you make, the more opportunities open, the more doors open, right? If you look at all the other channels that talk about sports photography, most of them mention people they knew that got them to places, right? It's all about the people. So the gear is important, obviously. If you're starting out, the gear is not going to be the best of the best, but you work with what you got, right? Your skill might be good, but it doesn't matter at the start. What matters is building those connections, those human connections that will actually get you to more events. And speaking about gear, when you're starting out, you're not going to have a 400mm f2.8, a 1DX Mark III, etc. Unless you're rich, then good for you. But if you're like most of us, when you're starting out, you'll have the kit lens, or maybe a little bit more, just one body, and your gear will be limited. Now, my advice would be, because of that, because of the limitations of your gear, I would advise that you do daytime games. Because if you go to nighttime games, which are the most difficult ones, with poorly lit fields or indoors gymnasiums with poor lighting conditions, then you're going to struggle a lot. If you struggle a lot, then the photos are not going to come out that great if your gear is not good enough, and you're going to lose motivation, and with that you might just give up. So if you want to start slow, go daytime games and your gear will be fine. Once you've done quite a few pictures of the sport that you like and that you enjoy and understand, then pick other sports. You need to expand your portfolio. Your portfolio should not be just about one sport. It should have plenty. And what you can do in that case is maybe try to photograph the matches of sports that don't get that much exposure. Maybe women's football or hockey or track and field. Everybody wants to go to the football, like soccer or basketball, where you'll see tons of photographers, and the other sports that don't get much exposure, that's a great opportunity for you. So go to those ones and go from there. Again, you'll meet people will lead to more opportunities. Another idea is to go to events, public events, where you actually don't need a credential and just go as a spectator. Something like cycling, or a marathon or mini marathon, or any run really, where you can take pictures from the spectator's point of view. Nobody will know that those pictures were taken as a spectator, because if you get a credential to those events, the only difference really will be that they have access to the starting and finishing line and maybe some of the checkpoints. And then for the credentials, going back to everything I've said so far about starting sports photography, I think you got the idea already. The credentials follows the same path, right? You need to earn a credential. It doesn't fall from the sky, You need to work towards it. And the more you work, the bigger your portfolio, the more people you meet, the likely it will be for you to be accredited to a sports event. I have received many no's in the past because, to be fair, I didn't have anything to show for, or very little. But coming back to the same event or sport a year later or 2 years later, then I get a yes, because you look back and say, no, you know what, this guy did work for it and he's earned it. So that's what you do. The more important the event, I guess, the stricter the rules will be. So something like the Olympics or the World Cup or something like that, really big, only the ones with agencies and whatnot will get into that, right? But other events, lower events, it depends on the people that you meet, on the connections that you have. You might actually get into those. So patience is key, but earning those credentials takes time. Nobody does it overnight. You need to work at it, you need to build your portfolio, and eventually you get there. One more thing about credentials, because I did get this question asked in Instagram, for Irish people specifically that want to photograph Gaelic games, so hurling, camogie, Gaelic football, even handball. How do you photograph those? Well, every little tiny village in this country has a team. So start with that. Start with your local team, and then move to bigger teams and to the county team, and then that's how you do it, right? Start from the bottom, just as like any other sport. If you want to go out and shoot the All-Ireland final from the get-go, it's not going to happen. Start at the bottom. Every club has a PRO, which stands for public relations officer. Basically, that's the person responsible for dealing with media. So in this case, the photographer will fit into that. Contact the club's PRO and ask them if you can start photographing their matches. You'll get a lot of no's, but you'll get some yeses too. It just takes the first yes to begin, and then you go from there. So the reason I made this video is because I was asked these two questions quite a bit recently on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, of all places. So yeah, if you have any questions or any ideas for videos, I would love to hear them. So shoot me an email, send me a poke on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. And if it's something that I think is worth mentioning to a lot of people, then I'd be happy to do it as soon as I have time. If there's any other questions you have, just shoot them down in the comments and I'll try to answer as many as possible. And thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you liked it, hit that thumbs up, it helps a lot. If you loved it, subscribe. And if you want to watch more, just wait for me to clap.